So what we have here today is a video of a video. So it ain't gonna be perfect, but we're gonna see enough here to be able to understand what happens if we slide or sway off of the golf ball. And so what that means is if our body in the backswing moves too much over, in this case, a right-handed golfer, moves too much to the right, is we're gonna have to match that movement back to the left in the downswing, and it becomes very difficult and very timing dependent with the hands to try and save it. And so this can happen for quite a few things, but most commonly is this effort to try and get the club to a parallel position or to even try and overswing more than what your body's able to do. So if you're lacking some flexibility in the upper or middle part of your back or some weakness in your hip, these are two common signs that we're going to see. So as we take the club back, we're going to see the camera start to shift a little bit to the right. So it's a bit more dramatic than what it really is, but point still made, how far we are off of this swing. We're not doing a great job, unfortunately, of loading into the ground with our right foot, and we can see how our knee is starting to move outside of the leg, and everything is now on the outside or behind us. If we had a down the line view, we'd probably see that we're actually starting to stand up as well. And so what's happened here is we've come well off the ball, basically just as said, in order to try and get the club to a parallel position at the top. And so from this position, our shoulders and our chest stops turning, but our club is still, somewhere in this position, and which I'll be honest with you, is perfectly fine to be hitting wedges and irons from. But the effort is we want to try and get to up here. And so what ends up happening is we can see at this point how little the shoulders move and how much the arms start to go. And what could end up happening is even some flexion of our elbow. Our elbow starts to bend, and in this, we end up having a little bit of this kind of leaning back towards the target, but most notably is probably this Elvis knee up front. And so we've shifted the way too much of our weight onto our back foot that now we're going to have this big slide back towards the golf ball. And so this golfer does a great job of getting his body back onto that right line where kind of like our left ear is lined up with the ball, similar to a dress, so that we know the bottom of our arc is going to be consistent. But what ends up happening is our body is trying to slide laterally just to the side, and it's trying to rotate at the same time. And so it's not really good at doing either. And so what ends up happening most commonly is we start to lean back. And so we kind of have this very club gets stuck behind you because you don't want to go over the top, and our hips get way out in front of us, and our hands and our elbow, as we're getting an approaching impact, our hands should be in a spot probably up more along the line so the hands can release naturally. But because they're so far behind us, we are now notably stuck. And as we start to come in through the swing, we do a good job of basically holding off as much as we can, but we're seeing the entire glove of that hand, which tells us we're not going to have a lot of good rotation coming through, and becomes very kind of leaning back. We got this big old arc here in our body. This is very like Tom Watson-esque to, his old stay in the barrel as he swings, which isn't bad to stay on top of it. But in this case, because we're sliding so far towards the golf ball, we're trying to keep our body behind. And we can see how far in front our body is basically on the right side of this line, and our head is way over on the left, whereas we'd like to see things a bit more even. Overall, not a bad swing. You can definitely get away with it. Very timing dependent, very, accurate to some degree in regards to, sweeping motion. So sometimes the longer irons or even the hybrids are actually a little bit easier to hit because you're going to be hitting up on them a little bit because you're leaning back. But definitely going to have a lot of inconsistency with your short clubs and particularly your wedges.